Welcome to Built to Win, the podcast created to help you level up your business game by developing a success mindset made for the long run. In this episode, Neora's Dave Fleming talks with National Marketing Director Julie Amburgey about her journey as an entrepreneur, not only with Neora, but with her successful family-run HVAC business. Julie explains how she fell in love with Neora and learned to fit it into her life, and how her life has changed because of that.
Hey, everybody, welcome back to Built to Win, and thanks for joining me today. It is an exciting conversation we're going to have with my friend, Julie Amburgey, who is a recently promoted National Marketing Director at Neora, but also runs a very successful HVAC business. And we've known each other now for, I guess, a little going on 3 years, maybe a little over 3 years. But Julie, first of all, thanks for coming on the podcast with me. I appreciate you being here. And for those that are listening but don't know you yet, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us who you are. What's keeping you busy? I know you got a lot of things keeping you busy, but yeah, tell us about yourself.
Sure. Thanks, Dave. I'm excited to be here. My first ever podcast appearance. So it's exciting. So like Dave said, I'm Julie Amburgey. I'm in Georgetown, Kentucky, little town right outside of Lexington. I've been here most of my life, bounced around a little bit, but just always landed back here. Great place for family, raise my kids. Our family business is here. So I have two boys. My sons, Landon and Ashton, they're 24 and 21. My oldest son is recently engaged, so that's pretty exciting. We did it.
Congrats. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. So we're in full wedding planning mode for them for next year. My youngest son, Ashton, just turned 21 this week. So that's exciting. We're headed down to Bowling Green, Kentucky this weekend. He's at Western Kentucky University for his very last family weekend. We're proud of him. He did the Western Kentucky University in 3 years instead of 4. So I'm very happy about that.
Yeah.
My husband, Ronnie, is retired, and I have two bonus daughters. So Larissa and Lauren, they're in New York, both married, and we have 5 grandchildren. I know that's shocking that we have 5 grandchildren, but we do. That's exciting. We don't get to see them as often as we want because they're, in New York. But yeah, so that's a little bit about me. I love volunteering in the community. I try to be very active with our local homeless and emergency shelter, and just different activities here locally.
That's great. Yeah, I know one thing I know about you, Julie, is that you definitely keep yourself busy with a lot of different things, a lot of activities, which you're kind of just describing. But one of the things that, and we talk about entrepreneurialism, we talk about like business building on this podcast quite a bit, and you are and still run a very successful business in Georgetown, right? Like the HVAC business has been going for a while.
Long time, yeah. So it's actually my dad's business. So my dad started doing heating and air conditioning way back about 50 years ago, and he worked for his dad. So right out of high school, my dad and my mom moved to Florida, where my dad worked for his father doing heating and air conditioning. So it's been a family tradition, not one that I thought that I would be involved with, but so yeah, it's my dad started working for the company in 1980, bought it in 1994, bought the company. And then I started working for him in 1999. It certainly was not on my radar. I did not think I was going to be doing heating and air conditioning for a lot of reasons. But one, and it's funny that when I started, my dad actually called me and said, "Do you know anybody who would be interested in answering the phones here for the heating and air?" And at the time, his office was in the attic of his house. He had turned it into a room which was actually originally my bedroom when I was younger, and that was the office, interestingly enough. And so, I thought about it. I was kind of in limbo with what I was doing. I was in school, second year of college. I was not cut out for that. That was not my cup of tea, and didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I had no idea. And I said, I could do that. I can answer the phones. And my dad immediately said no. Like, what do you mean no? So he was just afraid of the family dynamic, and afraid that we would, butt heads on things, and which we have, but we had the understanding that during business hours it was business, and during family time it was family, and we didn't mix the two. And I think that that's what has made it last. And so at that point, he said, we can try this temporarily until I find somebody else. And, people ask us, how long is temporary? And I'm like, well, until it doesn't work anymore. And so here I am 26 years later, I'm still temporary. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's how it all came about. And we've worked, I started working for him, answering phones and um, scheduling service calls, just talking to customers. And then I've worked my way. I just gradually started learning more and more and more about the business. And my dad was very open to teaching me, but we never dreamed that we would be where we are now, where, he's at a point where he's mostly retired and I run the show and I do all the things from, you know, just everything, job site visits and inspections and quotes and sales and HR and custodial, whatever needs to be done. That's really my job. But I do
Yeah.
have somebody else who answers the phones, though. I learned I didn't
You
want to do that,
you've graduated. You've graduated from,
but
that's funny.
graduated from that. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been an
So
exciting journey.
that is an exciting journey that, and especially
Mhm.
if something that you weren't necessarily planning to do. But I'm curious because like growing up in a household that sounds like very entrepreneurial, and your
Mhm.
dad like buying the business that he worked for, was that something that you thought, hey, that's a pretty good way to go? Was it kind of ingrained into you, or did that come later as you kind of grew into the role that you're in now, kind of running the business now? I guess I'm curious, like at what point did you decide I'm going to do this for a little while, and then you're like, no, this is what I'm going to do. Like this is like I'm enjoying it enough and it's rewarding enough that I'm going to stick around.
I think, growing up, it was hard because dad wasn't always there for everything. Like, he was building a business and being younger, I didn't necessarily understand that. Like I was softball games and he would be there, but then he would have to leave. And then, just all the things and sitting down for dinner and he would get a call and he would have to go because it was just him. Literally, it was him building this business. And so that was hard. And I think in my mind, I thought, I don't want that, right? I don't necessarily want that. I don't want to do that part of it. But as time went on and as I started spending more time in the business, and I think what really hit me was talking to our customers and understanding what my dad had done for them and then being able to play a role in that. And then you have that emotional attachment too, because I've had people ask me if are you planning to ever get out of this business? And no, I don't really have any intentions of ever changing because I have an emotional attachment. And I think that comes a lot from growing up and seeing the hard work and the time that my dad put into it. And then the time that we have put into it together to grow it to what it is now. But, I never dreamed that I would have and it makes me want to cry sometimes, such an emotional attachment to the business and having people come and ask to buy it, which is a huge compliment because it just means that we've done something pretty significant. But again, it's the customers, our customers. I have people who we're putting in their second and third heating and air system, right? And so building that relationship and building that trust, and they're our family too. And so, but I think I got off track with your question, but I think, I just did not want that part of it as far as the time away from my family. But then I learned that, you know, you don't necessarily have to do that, right? You can schedule your time accordingly. You can be with your family and you can be in the community and volunteering and you can still do all the things. And thank goodness my dad grew the business to the point where I came in that I could, do more of the things that he wasn't able to do. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that's a really good point. Kind of intentionally schedule. We've talked about that on this podcast before, kind of about intentionally managing your time so that you can spend it where you want to. No, business has got to get done, of course,
Yes.
but I think we live in a day and age now, and I think our parents and people of like previous generations didn't have that luxury all the time because they were building something and they were, they didn't get to choose between family and work sometimes because they had to choose work. So I love that you're focused on, I love that you're intentionally calling that out and saying, I'm doing it a little differently than it might have been done before, because I think that's important.
Hmm. I
I'm
agree.
I'm I'm curious, like, and we met through Neora. I'm obviously I work with Neora, and you're a new national marketing director. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, like how, like you've got a very successful business, everything's going really well, and then here along comes Neora. What made you, first of all, what made you interested in even looking at that, doing something in addition to like you're a very busy person already?
It was not on my radar, and I did not want to do it. Um, so at the time, when Neora came along, I actually, my husband was using products, and so that's how was introduced to it. And I,
Wait. Your husband was using Neora products?
my husband, I bought Neora products for my husband. So it's crazy. My husband at the time was a lead singer in a band.
Okay.
And that was his side gig. That was his fun gig. And it was fun for me too, because it was an outlet. It was a way that I could get out and socialize and be with people, something completely different than, everyday work. And so anyway, Ronnie was using products and I wanted, I'm a sucker for a discount. And so my friend came to me and she's like, why don't you just buy one of these great starter packs? I know Ronnie loves the products. I was secretly using the products because I saw what it was doing for him. And I'm like, I'm a little competitive, a lot competitive. And so I was like,
Yes.
I'm going to start sneaking his products like any good wife. So anyway, um, I had no intentions of working the business at all. It was truly, it just kind of accidentally happened. But at the time, my boys were younger. My oldest son, Landon, was playing soccer. Well, he was in his senior year of high school, so we had college visits, we had soccer, we had all kinds of things happening with him. My youngest son, Ashton, was huge in golf, and so traveling all the time with golf. I mean, all over the state for golf tournaments. I was president of the whatever they do with the booster club for the golf team. I was on the board of directors for our Chamber of Commerce. I was a chair for the events committee. I was on another committee for our local homeless and emergency shelter. I'm sure there were a handful of other things. And then Ronnie was in the band, and so I was trying to be supportive of that every weekend and running the heating and air business. And so I said, I do not have 1 minute in my day to do one more thing. Um, but then we filled out FAFSA paperwork for my oldest son for college. I don't know if anybody's ever done that before, but I almost threw my
Mhm.
computer out the window. And so like, oh, I'm gonna buy a new computer and somebody's had to pay for college. And so I will never forget the day. We were on fall break. We were in Branson with my sister, my brother, my family, and I said, I'm gonna have to do something. I want to make a little extra money because for me, it was really important to be able to provide a college education for my kids, if that's what they wanted, with no student loans or debt.
Mm.
And I could have done that with the heating and air. Ronnie was working full time. We could have done it, but it would have changed our lifestyle completely. And I didn't want to do that. So I looked at things and I was like, if I stop watching Bobby Flay, I mean, I love Bobby Flay.
I
He
know that's a sacrifice.
It was a sacrifice. If I stop watching Bobby Flay, then I can fit Neora in 30 minutes a day in my schedule. And so that's what I did. And it just progressed and it just kept going and kept going and kept going. And then here we are, 7 years later, and I didn't have to change my lifestyle. My husband retired from his job 3 years earlier than what we anticipated. We have put two kids through college with no student loans or debt, and I'm still able to do the heating and air just by changing my schedule a little bit. So that's how Neora came along. And I really think that it's important too to point out that I didn't try to reinvent the wheel with my Neora business. I decided that I would do it much like I do the heating and air. So I thought, we've grown this heating and air conditioning business from just being very, very small to something significant by treating people the way that we want to be treated, with honesty and integrity and being authentic and transparent and being real, developing those relationships and that trust. And so I took all of those same things that my dad had taught me over the years and just put that into my newer business and did it the same exact way that we had been doing the heating and air. And it's worked.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems to be working really well. So
Mhm.
that's really, yeah, and I love that because I think a lot of people, yeah, if you've got a kid in college and if you're paying that tuition bill, like it's significant. My daughter's at university right now, so I totally understand where that is. And I think that's a really, if you can do it, I think that's a really cool thing, really noble thing to be able to get out of college without debt. So that's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I'm curious, like you started just using the products for yourself, and then was it kind of, did it become easy to share the products as like were people asking you about the products, or did you have to go out and like find people to talk to about it?
Yes and no. So, no, at first it was not easy. I was afraid. I was scared. I was nervous. Um, I was completely against sharing anything on social media, mostly because I did not want my heating and air customers to think that I was going to be leaving the heating and air business. I didn't want them to think that. And I, for whatever reason, I just refused to put anything out there about it. And I don't know why. And then, but once I made the decision that I was going to do this, and once I started being more consistent with the products and learning more about them, it became easier. And then people started asking me about it. And once I decided exactly what I wanted out of the business, that was a turning point because at first I didn't know. I was like, I don't even know. I don't know. I had done other direct sales things before and it never, I mean, it just didn't feel right, if that makes sense. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel right. And so I didn't want to share until I was completely comfortable with how I felt about it, I guess. And so once I made my mind up and once I knew I was what I wanted to do with it, I started just telling the world about it. I mean, I shared on social media, but then I started talking to people and telling people about it because I feel like that's the for me, that's the easiest way is, if people trust me, then they're going to trust that I'm being real and honest with them about the things that I'm doing. And I'm not going to tell anybody that I like something and that I love it if I don't. And so, having built relationships and over the years and built that trust, I became very comfortable with just sharing and talking about it with people. I invited people over to the house and we would have gatherings and I would just let them use the products. I carried products with me everywhere. Even on vacations I would take stuff because I'm like, this is incredible and everybody should be doing this. And I knew what it was doing for me, and at that point I think it was a turning point that once I made that decision it became much easier.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's when we've had people on the podcast before that talk about that same similar idea, where it kind
Mhm.
of is like they, in fact, I'm trying to think of like the majority of the guests that we've had on didn't start with the intention of doing the business. It just kind of naturally happened, which I think is pretty cool. That says a lot about kind of the opportunity to do the business. Um, but you'd said you'd done some direct selling before and it didn't feel great. What, and not to put anybody on the spot or any companies on the spot, but what were the things that you were worried about doing this, a direct selling business, whether it was from, previous experience or just in general? Were there things that you were unsure about?
Yeah, there were things, in past experiences, um, it seemed like that I had to invest more money or spend more money than what I was making, and that's not the goal. I mean, right, we want to make money. That was the idea. And um I didn't always feel good about the products necessarily. I felt like products that were coming out didn't necessarily do what they said they were going to do, so I didn't feel comfortable telling people about it.
Mm.
I felt like some products were maybe more harmful than good, so I didn't feel good about that. And then one company in particular, the leadership was, I just did not, I was not comfortable with the leadership. I wasn't comfortable with what we were being asked to do. It's like that, I think sometimes we get that, I don't know, for lack of better words, like that sleazy network marketing. Does that make sense?
Oh, it's
Doesn't,
real. Yeah, it's real.
it doesn't feel good. And it's not, it's not in alignment with my values and my morals and my ethics. And I don't feel like it should always be about selling somebody something, right? It should be about helping people. And that's one of the things I love about Neora is that we're helping people. We're helping make people better. And that's what I love about the heating and air is that I'm helping people and on a daily basis. And so, and it's not always about the sale. I mean, I could be helping people by showing them how to bring in extra income for their family. I could be helping people by introducing them to a product. I could help people just by something that I say. You never know how you're going to impact people on a daily basis. And so I get that opportunity with both the heating and air and with Neora, but some of the other companies, it was not in alignment with what I believe in, and it just didn't feel good.
Sure.
Yeah.
I totally understand that because I think, and we've talked a little bit about that on this podcast, but there are, there are good direct selling companies out there, lots of good direct selling companies out there. There are also not good direct selling companies. It's just like any other business, anything
Right.
else that's out there. And I think a lot of people they just don't necessarily know what to look for. And we try to help a little bit with that. We're not going to throw anybody under the bus, but I think trusting your gut and like what you said about how it felt, I think that's so important for people to like give that, like that's your intuition talking to you. Like if it doesn't feel good and it's like it's kind of weird and a little, like you said, a little sleazy, like that
Yeah.
should be a red flag that says, yeah, maybe this isn't what I wanted it to be or what I
Right.
hoped it would be. So hopefully Neora
Exactly.
is not in that boat
Right.
at all, but I don't think it doesn't sound like it is.
I would still be here if it was, Dave.
Yeah, that's true. One thing I know about Julie is that you're not going to do it if you don't believe in it.
No, no, I'm not. And that, we see that in the industry. We see that with the heating and air and, and it's going to be anywhere that you go. You just have to be able to identify that and make a decision to not participate in that activity, I guess.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I'm also interested, like, what are those things? What were the things that you were concerned about, um, that turned out to not be true in this case? I know like, you kind of talked about like some of the things that like some of the products didn't work like they were supposed to work or some things like that. I mean, I'm curious, were there things that you learned from other direct selling companies that still applied here, or was it more like this was a completely brand new experience?
Neora was a brand new experience. I mean, what I one of the things I love about Neora is that if you guys as the executive team you say something, that's what it is, right? So it's not empty promises. So and I feel like that the company is led, it's great leadership, people with integrity and transparency. And the other thing about Neora that I was afraid of in the past when I had been with other companies, it's like it was all about just getting people in, and then you were left in with your wheels spinning and not really knowing what to do. I didn't really have the guidance or the guidance that I felt like I needed. And with Neora, you have help and you have guidance and you have leadership and you have the tools that you need. I mean, the tools are absolutely amazing. Like it takes all the guesswork out of everything. I mean, if somebody joins Neora and they're not successful at this point where we are now, I can't imagine why. It's simply because they're not using the tools. That's it. And not paying attention really when it comes right down to it. And so I feel like that, I wasn't just, I feel like with Neora that somebody didn't just come and sign me up with the company and run away and leave me trying to figure things out on my own. That's one of the biggest things for me and why I was so hesitant is that in the past I've joined, but then I've been just kind of left and with no help and no guidance and nobody reaching out to me necessarily. And so, and then, I feel like too that I feel like with one company in particular, and I won't go into the specifics on who it was, but there was no real the compensation plan didn't make sense. The opportunity didn't make sense. I couldn't even figure out how to make money. And I was constantly being asked to, well, you need to buy this and you need to buy this. And that's how you're going to rank advance. And I felt like I'm buying my rank advancements. That doesn't make any sense. And I'm spending more money than what I'm making. And that's not why I'm here. But with Neora, it's like you are rewarded for your effort. And so I can do as little or as much as I want, and I'm rewarded for wherever I am. And people meet you where you are. Like, of course we want everybody to do all the things and be up here, but if I don't want to do that, then I don't have somebody lingering over me saying, you have to, you have to, you have to. It's like there's an opportunity for everybody, no matter where you are and what you want. It's just, and not only that, but it's like people believe in you, right? And you guys do, it's so much. It's just so many tools, and the leadership is great, and it's a positive environment. And so all those things, it's just different at Neora than anywhere else I've ever been.
Well, that's great. And this, you weren't paid to say that either. So that's
No, there's no payment involved in that.
no payment involved in that.
Okay,
Um,
that was free.
yeah, that was, but that was really well said. And I think that speaks to a lot of concerns that people kind of have generally about direct selling. Because I think, if we're being honest about the business of direct selling, there are a lot of people who have tried direct selling. It wasn't great experience for a
Mhm.
lot of things that you just said. Like there's a lot of pressure. There's like, you have to build, you have to recruit, like you're always talking about it. Um, and that's not the case here. Um, I'm curious, kind of different kind of different direction. But are there things that you learned maybe as being like an entrepreneur, being an HVAC business owner that that apply to your Neora business, like different skill sets or different, like even if it's just organizationally or like, or how that all comes together?
Every day, every day. I mean, I think that with the heat and air, I had to learn very quickly to have thick skin and be okay with people saying no, because I'm not going to sell every job. I'm not. And that's okay. I mean, there are other people, and sometimes people aren't compatible, right? And so sometimes I can walk into a customer's house or, a potential customer, and I can tell immediately, they're not going to go with me because we're not compatible. And sometimes it's on their side and sometimes it's on my side. And I think too, it's the same with Neora. Like, I'm not going to sign up everybody as a brand partner to be on my team, and not everybody is going to be my customer because we're not compatible for whatever reason. And I know is, in the heating and air, it could even be the same as with Neora. I know it's just a no for now because sometimes they go with somebody else and they don't get what they thought they were going to get, and then they call me and I come out and help them. And in Neora, I may ask somebody to join my team and they say no, but 6 months from now, the timing is right. And so then they come back. But I think some of the other things that, kind of are for both is that it's the relationship building, right? And developing that trust with people. And with the heating and air, it's amazing. Probably 75% of my customers, they don't even know what brand of heating and air equipment they're getting. They just know who they're doing business with. I sell myself and my name, not a brand. And I think I do a lot of that the same with Neora, is that people trust me. And I mean, a lot of people who use the products can't even say the name. And that's, I know that maybe that sounds terrible, but I mean, I think that speaks volumes for the relationship building and the trust that we build with our customers. They trust what we're doing, they see what we're doing. And, the organizational skills, that is huge. I think that having a system is really important. And I have that with the heating and air. We have a system and we run a very tight ship, and it's the same system every day. It's consistent all the time. And then the same with Neora. Like, we have a system with Neora, and more recently, and we have the system coming from corporate with Neora that is absolutely incredible. So you have something to follow, and the the trainings, I do all the same trainings, the continuing ed trainings with heating and air and the continuing ed trainings with Neora, except Neoras are free, which is amazing. They're not with heating and air. I invest a lot of money into that. So, and then, you know, being able to set boundaries and time block. And so, with the heating and air, my day is ever changing and I have to be able to pivot. Like sitting here, I've gotten probably 12 messages from crews that I have on job sites, but this is my time here, right? And so being able to time block and being able to schedule your day and set the boundaries, I think all of that is really important. And that was something that I learned quickly with Neora that I was able to bring from the heating and air to Neora too was, time and setting the time aside to actually spend on the business and making my family aware of that. Like my kids, they knew that with the heating and air, it's the funny, they still joke about this because after hours, the business phone will ring to me nights and weekends. And if I had the kids in the car and they were little and my phone rang, I could snap my fingers and they were silent, right? They knew that that was heating and air time. And the same at home with the Neora business is that I could, if I was in my office sitting at my desk and I had the door shut, the kids knew that that was my Neora time. And so I think that too comes back to talking with your family and being open with your family about what you're doing and why you're doing it. And so my kids knew both the significance of the heating and air and the significance of the Neora. So really both of my businesses are intertwined a lot. And I've brought a lot from the heating and air into the Neora. And I've also brought Neora ideas and concepts into the heating and air. So yeah,
That makes
a lot of
sense.
intertwining there.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. No, but I think that makes sense, especially kind of as you guys as a successful, practiced entrepreneur that your skill set would definitely transfer. I think that's one of the great things in my opinion, one of the great things about direct selling is that there are a lot of skills that are transferable to other aspects of life. Um, I'm curious, like what is your favorite part about your Neora business and in the direct selling business?
My favorite part, aside from my people, I love my people. That's the first thing that I do every morning. I have little groups of people on my team that we communicate daily and having those relationships with them and the friendships even. I mean, and how that's grown outside of Neora to a friendship. And we do things that are not Neora related. So, aside from that, it's the ability to be able to create my business on my time, on my terms. So I can do this from anywhere. Like, next week I'm taking my oldest son to Vegas for a few days. I can work my Neora business from there. The week after that, I'm taking my youngest son to Puerto Rico. I can work my Neora business from there. So it's my business on my terms, on my time. I'm my boss and I'm in control. Like I get to decide how much effort I'm going to put in this month and how much money I'm going to make. You get to decide that because I mean, truly, it is a decision and it solely depends on your effort and what you do. And that's one of the beauties about Neora is that you can build a team or you can build a customer base or you can do both. And it really depends on how much you want to put into it. And so I love that about it because there's some jobs, and even with the heating and air, I mean, there are limitations. Like, I can't just go, I mean, I could, but I'm obviously not going to go out here to my neighbor's house and start knocking on doors trying to sell heating and air equipment, right? So there's only so much that I can do. But with Neora, it's limitless.
Hmm. That's gr- no, that is true. And what's also really cool about it is a lot of people who didn't get started for the money find that the money actually is one of the most rewarding things, um, which is always really cool to see.
It
Um,
is.
there's always a flip side, of course. What's the hardest part about the New York business?
I think the hardest part for me is not being able to do all the things all the time. Because I do, I have other things. So I have to make decisions about what am I going to do and what am I not going to do. And so I can't, and I think that's the hardest thing. And that's been a battle for me ever since the beginning is the overwhelming feeling sometimes that I have to do it all. And that's a me thing. That's not even a Neora thing. But that's the hardest thing is, I want to do so much for so many people, and I can't physically do everything for everybody. Like, I want to talk to all of my brand partners every day. Well, I can't do that. I want to talk to all of my customers for longer, and I can't do that. And I want to be present at every single training, and I can't physically do that. And so that's something that's hard for me, is just not being able to do everything all the time and know everything right away. That was a big thing. I wanted to know every single thing within like the first week. And that was hard for me to realize, is that not everybody knows all the things, and don't wait until you know all the things to do the thing, right? So that was a challenge for me, because I felt like I had to be a perfectionist and know everything before I actually jumped in. And so once I got over that a little bit and just did the thing, and it's so strange because I hire people with heating and air right out of high school who have zero training. I'm like, you're going to learn on the job. That's the best way to learn. But then I started Neora and I was like, I got to know it all. I have to read everything. I have to know everything about every product and all. And I'm like, that's silly. You don't even do that with heating and air. You hire people so that you can train them. And so I think once I realized that, it was much easier. I still struggle with it though.
Well, yeah, and then that makes sense, right? Because you're as a business owner, you want to make sure everything is right. But yeah, sometimes it's hard to apply the principles to ourselves, easier to apply to other people sometimes.
Yeah.
But if you were looking at or if somebody were looking at this business for the first time, or maybe to get back into this business if they've taken a break from it for a little while, what advice would you give them?
Oh, goodness. Don't overthink it. Don't overthink it. Just do it. Figure out what you want and what brings you joy. I think that sometimes it's easy to get lost in other people's expectations of you, and you don't and you kind of get out of touch with why you started or what you want. But getting in touch with what you want and understanding what you want and why you're doing this, and doing it for yourself and for your family, and doing things in a way that makes you feel good about it, right? Making sure that how you're doing your business is in alignment with your values and your ethics, and being transparent and authentic. I mean, that's the best advice that I can give. I mean, that's how I feel like I do both the heating and air and the Neora. And I think sometimes it's easy to get lost in the comparison game where you're comparing yourself to other people. And Dave, you and I have had this conversation before about where I was in my business and where I thought I should be in my business. And once I stepped back and just put my perspectives on and looked at everything, it's like, you know what? It is my business on my terms. It's not meant to be stressful. It's meant to be fun. It's meant to bring me joy. It's meant to bring in extra income. And I have to figure out a way to do that is in alignment with my beliefs and to get me to where I want to be with my goals.
Well, this has been great. This has been super fun to have you on, and really, I think, super helpful for people who are looking at potentially doing something like this. So thank you for being on and so transparent and just being part of the show today. It's been
Thanks,
great.
Dave.
Thank you.
Exciting. I never dreamed I would ever do anything like this in my whole life, but here I am.
Here you are.
Thank you.
Yeah, here you are.
Thank you.
And then we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.
That was Dave Fleming talking with Julie Amburgey about her entrepreneurial journey and what makes Neora so different. We hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you learned something from it, please share it with a friend or colleague who you think would also benefit. And if you're new to Built to Win, we invite you to go back and listen to our story from the beginning. You can find us wherever you download your favorite podcasts. And while you're there, please rate us and leave a review to let us know what you think of the show.